All right, get ready because today we're going deep on this book called How to Stop Sucking at Being Human.
That's quite a title.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And it's really not what you might think.
Yeah, it's not one of those like super fluffy self-help books.
Not at all. It actually goes pretty deep, like how our brains work or how consumerism messes us up, all kinds of things.
And I think our listeners will appreciate that,
Absolutely.
This is for the learner who really wants to improve themselves and their lives.
Exactly. Practical stuff you can actually use.
Right.
So are you ready to level up your human?
I think so, yeah.
All right. Let's start with something I think everyone struggles with, at least a little bit.
Okay.
Procrastination.
Oh, yeah.
Why do we do it?
Right.
The source says it's not laziness. It's like our brain, our ancient brain wiring just kind of going haywire.
It's trying to protect us.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you think about it, like when we look at our to-do list,
Oh, yeah.
our amygdala,
Yeah.
the fear center of our brain,
Yep.
it's like, oh no.
Freaks out.
It freaks out.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that we'd rather scroll through social media
Oh, absolutely.
than face that report that's due or whatever.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
So what the source says is we need to strengthen another part of our brain,
Okay.
the prefrontal cortex, which is like the planning and reasoning part.
Right.
But get this. They say start ridiculously small.
Okay.
Don't aim for the marathon.
Yeah.
Just do one push-up.
I love that.
What would your one push-up be for that goal that you've been putting off?
That's a good question.
Even tiny wins.
Yeah.
They build momentum.
They do.
You're telling your brain, hey, we can do this.
Totally.
And that makes those bigger steps seem less scary,
It's huge.
especially for our listeners who love to learn new things.
Yeah, they're always taking on big challenges, so
Yeah.
that's a great point.
All right, let's talk emotions.
Okay.
I love how this source calls it emotional aikido.
Interesting.
We're not resisting our feelings, but we're learning how to redirect that energy.
It's a much healthier approach than just trying to bottle everything up.
Totally.
Right. And the source gives this tip that seems so simple,
Yeah.
but it's really powerful. Just label your emotions.
Oh, okay. So instead of thinking I'm a complete disaster, I'd be like, okay, right now I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Yes.
I can do that.
It sounds so easy,
Right.
but there's actually neuroscience behind it.
Really?
Yeah, when you name the emotion, it shifts activity in your brain
Yeah.
from that panicked amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, which is more rational.
Hitting the pause button.
Yeah.
That's so helpful, especially if you're prepping for a tough conversation and you're feeling all anxious.
Absolutely.
Just acknowledging the feeling can make a huge difference.
Totally.
Okay, now speaking of conversations, the source has some really interesting things to say about relationships.
Yeah, especially when things get a little bit heated.
Yeah, like arguments.
Yeah, arguments, disagreements.
I'll admit, sometimes I go into an argument and I'm like, I'm going to win this one.
Yeah.
But this source says that's the worst way to handle conflict.
It is, because you might win the argument,
Right.
but you lose the connection.
That's so true. Have you ever won an argument
Yes.
but felt worse afterward?
Absolutely.
So what's the alternative?
The source says to listen to understand,
Okay.
not to respond.
That's hard.
It is hard. But imagine you're in a disagreement,
Yeah.
and instead of firing back, you just say, I see why you feel that way,
Hmm.
even if you don't agree.
Oh, wow.
How do you think that would change things?
I think that would change everything.
Right. It totally changes the dynamic.
Yeah, and it shows the other person that you're really trying to understand them.
It shows that you value them and their feelings.
Yeah, and that's probably way more important than being right.
It is, and it goes back to that core human need to feel validated and heard.
Totally.
For our listeners, think about how this could change your work relationships,
Oh, yeah.
your personal relationships, all your interactions.
Mind blown.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about the relationship we have with ourselves.
Okay.
Because this source isn't about cheesy self-love affirmations. It's about practical self-compassion.
That's so important.
Yeah, because let's be honest. We are often our own worst critics.
We are?
That negative self-talk can be brutal.
It can be really damaging.
So what's the antidote?
The source gives this rule.
Mm-hmm.
If you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself.
Hmm.
Would you call your friend a failure?
Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
So why would you talk to yourself that way?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
So instead of I'm such a screw-up, it's more okay, I messed up, but I'm learning from it.
Exactly. And the amazing thing is, this isn't just feel-good fluff.
Oh, really?
There's actually neuroscience behind it.
So it's like a brain hack.
Totally. You can actually rewire those negative thought patterns.
I am all about that.
And for the learner, who's always trying to grow and learn new things.
Always pushing themselves.
Yes, self-compassion is essential.
It is.
Because it builds resilience.
Okay, before we get to like the heavy stuff,
Yeah.
Consumerism and technology.
Yeah, all those big systems.
The systems that impact us.
Right.
The source talks about something called intentional living.
Mm.
And I think this is so important for our listeners.
Yeah, because they're always learning.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So the source is all about like prioritizing what truly matters.
Okay.
Deep work over shallow tasks.
Right.
Meaningful connections.
Yeah.
Going for those long-term goals instead of just those quick fixes.
So it's about being really intentional about how we live our lives.
It is. It's like designing a life.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, instead of just reacting to whatever's coming at you.
Absolutely.
Like taking back control.
Yes.
Which can feel especially overwhelming when you're constantly learning and trying new things.
It can.
Okay, are you ready to dive into those systems?
Yeah, let's do it.
Consumerism, technology, the stories we tell ourselves.
Both personally and culturally.
Let's unpack it all.
Let's go. Okay, welcome back to our deep dive into how to stop sucking at being human.
Let's get into those systems that can make being human feel, well...
Yeah, bit tricky.
Right. Last time we talked about consumerism, technology, and those stories we tell ourselves.
Like the narratives we create.
Yeah, both personal and the ones society kind of puts on us.
Yeah, the cultural narratives.
So where do we start unpacking all of that?
Well, let's talk about consumerism.
Okay.
Because this source really calls out the big lie.
Okay.
That happiness can be bought.
Mm.
We see it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Ads, social media. It's like you need the newest phone.
The latest clothes, the fanciest vacation.
Right, and then you'll finally be happy.
Yeah, but is that true?
Well, the research says no.
Okay.
Once our basic needs are met.
Like food and shelter and stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Okay.
More stuff doesn't actually equal more happiness.
It's like that saying, whoever dies with the most toys still dies. It really makes you think.
It does.
So if it's not about buying more stuff,
Right.
then how do we escape this like consumerist trap?
Well, the source says we need to redefine success.
Okay.
So instead of focusing on what you own,
Yeah.
shift your focus to what you create, what you contribute, and what you experience.
I like that.
Those travel memories, the time with loved ones.
Right, or even just like learning a new skill.
Exactly. Those are the things that truly make us feel fulfilled.
And you can't buy those things.
You can't.
Which is great for our listeners,
Oh, yeah, they're always learning and growing.
Yeah.
That's a kind of wealth that no amount of money can buy.
It is. Okay, let's talk about another big system in our lives.
Okay.
Technology.
Oh, technology.
Love it and hate it, right?
Right. It's a double-edged sword.
I mean, I love my phone.
I do too.
But it can be such a distraction.
Oh, absolutely.
And this source talks about how technology, even though it's amazing,
Yeah, it has so many benefits.
can also like hijack our brains.
Right. It can really take over.
Think about how many times you catch yourself just mindlessly scrolling.
Oh, all the time.
Even when you know it's not making you feel good.
I know.
Like my thumb just starts scrolling on autopilot.
It does. And then suddenly an hour's gone by.
Seriously. So how do we break free from this like digital spell?
Well, the source emphasizes boundaries.
Okay.
Even small reductions in screen time can make a big difference.
Okay. So like actually setting limits.
Yeah, and it's not just about quantity, it's
Okay.
about quality too.
So like being more intentional about what we're actually looking at.
Yes, choosing content that actually nourishes us instead of just whatever pops up.
Right. So instead of scrolling for an hour,
You could read a book
learn something new.
or spend time with loved ones.
It's about taking back control.
It is.
And the source asks a really interesting question. What are we running from when we reach for our phones?
That is a good question.
It's often discomfort,
Right, boredom, loneliness.
or those like difficult emotions we don't want to deal with.
It's so much easier to scroll through Instagram
Oh, yeah, totally.
than to just sit with feelings of anxiety
Exactly.
or uncertainty or whatever else is coming up.
But is that really helping us?
No. In fact, the source says
Yeah.
that facing those uncomfortable emotions head on
Okay.
rather than avoiding them
Yeah.
is actually the path to greater peace and fulfillment.
That's hard, though.
It is hard,
Yeah.
but it's like anything else. The more we practice,
Yeah.
the better we get at it.
So it's not about getting rid of those negative feelings altogether.
Right.
It's about learning to sit with them
Understand them.
and like move through them.
Exactly. It's part of being human.
Okay, are you ready to explore one of the most interesting systems of all?
Ooh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
the stories we tell ourselves.
Okay, let's dive in.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into how to stop sucking at being human. We've covered a lot, like brain hacks and battling consumerism.
So much good stuff.
Right. But now I think it's time to bring it all home. Like, how do we actually use all of this?
Yeah, make it practical.
Exactly. And one of the biggest things for me reading this source was self-awareness.
Oh, that's huge.
Right. Like really taking stock of your thoughts and your feelings and how you act and how all of that is affecting your experiences.
Yeah, it's like having that backstage pass.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you get to peek behind the curtain and see how everything works.
And for our listener, the learner, who's all about knowledge.
Always seeking that knowledge, yeah.
Self-awareness is like next level understanding of yourself.
Totally.
Pretty cool, huh?
It is. And once you have that self-awareness,
Yeah.
the source really emphasizes self-compassion.
That's tough sometimes.
It is. But think of it like being a good friend to yourself.
Especially when you mess up.
Especially then, right.
Because we all do.
Oh, yeah, we're human.
So instead of beating ourselves up,
Right.
the source suggests talking to ourselves like we would a friend who was struggling.
Yeah. Imagine your friend is feeling down about a mistake.
Yeah.
Would you tell them they were a complete failure?
No way.
Right. You'd offer support. You'd encourage them.
I would hope so, at least.
So why not offer that same kindness to ourselves?
That's a good point. I need to work on that.
And for our listener, who's always learning and pushing their boundaries.
Always striving to be better.
Yeah. Self-compassion is so important.
It is.
It allows us to be more resilient.
Okay, something else that stood out to me was connection.
Oh, connection's huge.
Yeah, and the source talks about it on all these different levels.
Like with ourselves, with other people.
Even with, like, something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, like spirituality or a sense of purpose.
Right. It's like remembering that we're not alone.
We're not meant to go through life alone.
And those connections, they really give life meaning.
Absolutely, whether it's family, friends, a community, or even nature.
It's about finding those things that make you feel like you belong.
That sense of belonging is so powerful.
It is, especially when the world feels so chaotic.
Yeah, like you have a safe haven.
Okay, ready for one final takeaway?
Okay, hit me with it.
Legacy.
Legacy.
Yeah, what kind of mark do we want to leave on the world?
Not about fame or fortune.
No, the source talks about it in terms of like
The small, meaningful ways we touch other people's lives.
those little ripple effects.
Right, a kind word,
Yeah.
helping someone out, just being there for someone.
It all makes a difference.
It really does, even if we don't always see it right away.
It's about being the change you want to see, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, think about how you can use all that you're learning,
All that knowledge.
to have a positive impact.
That's a good way to look at it.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with one question.
Okay.
If you were writing a manual for being human,
Ooh, I like this.
what would be your top 3 pieces of advice?
That's a good one.
What wisdom have you picked up along the way?
Both from your own life and from this deep dive into how to stop sucking at being human.
Let those insights be your guide.
And on that note,
Yeah,
thanks for joining us.
you don't have to be perfect.
Just keep learning, keep growing, and keep being curious.
Until next time, keep diving deep.